Hey, it's LSFT here today, and before I start on today's video, I would like to introduce our new Instagram account at LSFT Videos. You can see some daily updates on my NX450h Plus, which may not be shown on any future videos, and you can reach out to me directly via direct messaging on Instagram if you have any questions. And now, let's start with today's video. Hey, it's LSFT here today, and today I'm here to provide a 1-year anniversary update, the ownership update of the 2022 Lexus NX450h Plus F-Sport 3 in cadmium orange. I have been providing updates on the kilometers driven in each of my updates, and in other videos I have expressed that due to the pandemic, my driving behaviors have changed as I do not need to drive to the office every day. Previously, I would drive 65 kilometers per day and that would equate to 1,300 kilometers per month. But now working from home, I only drive 1 to 2 kilometers during the weekdays and most of my driving is actually on the weekends. So, in March 2022, being one of the lucky ones to have picked up the NX450h Plus in Canada at the Lexus dealership. The first month, I drove 764 kilometers, and the second month, going on a few trips, the odometer reached 2,178 kilometers, averaging about 1,089 kilometers per month. The third month, getting 3,046 kilometers, averaging 1,015 per month, which seems to be quite decent. But when I gave my 6-month update, I got to 5,041, which the average actually dropped to 840 kilometers for the first 6 months. At 9 months, just at the beginning of the winter season, it reached 7,749 kilometers, but still averaging about 861 kilometers per month. Now at the full year mark, the odometer reached 10,349 kilometers, which averages 862 kilometers per month. So based on my current driving needs, I am driving about 860 kilometers per month. And with that being said, my other vehicle, the Lexus CT, only got 4,000 to 5,000 kilometers this year. It's funny that gas fill-ups seem to always happen close to each update, but one important update this time is, during the colder winter months, there is less anxiety to use up the gas within the 3 months. Yes, it's not range anxiety, but now it seems like it's gas anxiety. As the previous few fill-ups, I had to purposely use charge mode to use up the gasoline for 3 months. This time the fill-up was about 83 days and not the 90 days, 1 week earlier than scheduled. I could have waited the extra week, and it was better to have a full tank just in case. But this time I actually did use charge mode, because you'll see later on in this video, I talk about charge mode. So this time, I filled up 36.817 liters of premium gasoline at $1.6039 Canadian dollars per liter, and between the two fill-ups, I've actually drove 2,763 kilometers. And that's roughly 1.3 liters per 100 kilometers, or 75 kilometers per liter. But definitely, that's not how it works, right? It's just not gasoline. There's also electricity costs and all that. So now let's go into the detail of gasoline fill-ups and electricity costs for the 12 months of ownership. Alright, so now let's look at the cost of ownership. So this sheet right now is the gasoline cost for my 2022 NX450h Plus. So I picked up my vehicle on March 24th, 2022, and I'm assuming that the full tank, 55 liters, was put in by the dealership. And then on my first official fill-up was actually May 14th, with 51 days between the pickup of the vehicle and the fill-up. And I drove 1,328 kilometers, and it filled 33.626 liters, and meaning that's 2.53 liters per 100 kilometers. And at that time, it was expensive for premium fuel, and that was the cost. And you can see here, 6 days later, I filled up again. I drove 668 kilometers. I filled up 20, and this time it was 3 liters per 100 kilometers. And the price went down a bit, and that was because of a road trip. Then on June 2nd, I filled up again because I'm planning on another road trip. And between the 13 days, I only drove 264 kilometers and did fill up 20 liters of gasoline. So that actually seemed quite high. It was 7.74 liters per 100 kilometers and 2.299 as the price, paying $47. Then September, December, and now February, when you look at it, 94 days, 91 days, and 82 days between every fill up. I've drove about 2,000 plus kilometers and filled up roughly about the same, 31 to 36 liters. Pricing is very close as well, and the liters per 100 is extremely close. So for the full year, I spent $338.68 for just gasoline, and I've driven 9,737.99 kilometers. Now we switch over to electricity costs. I actually introduced this in the 9-month ownership video, and now I've filled in January, February, and potentially March, because March has not ended, but I'm just trying to get based on an average number for March. So why do I have 2021 and 2022? Well, because if I have to compare April to December, I'm actually comparing the extra electricity used between 2021 and 2022. Again, I have not added anything or changed electricity behavior usage, so the numbers should be quite close. And when you look at it, I'm going to be comparing 2022 to 2023 for January, February, March. And because I picked up my car on March 22nd, the March usage shouldn't be that much more in 2022. So looking at here, I'm a little bit interesting is May and June seems to be a much smaller usage, and I'm not too sure why. But overall, if you look at it, I'm using roughly 200 more kilowatt hours per month, roughly. Because you can see 115, 247, 192. And again, it's extremely hard to calculate because it really depends on how many times I use my dryer, how many times I charge the vehicle. So I'm going to think about how do I do this better next time. I don't know if I want to keep track of how many times I've charged my vehicle, but unfortunately, I'm still using just a level 1 charger, so there's no measurement. If you have a level 2, yes, there's an app and tells you how many kilowatts you've charged, and that will be much easier to do. But unfortunately, I'm still using a level 1 at this time. So this is, again, a guesstimate using numbers that I have to see how much electricity. I'm assuming it would be less because depending on how much electricity I'm using, some of it could actually be other costs. But overall, from these numbers, is $169.52 of electricity costs charging the vehicle. And then I have actually went to the public chargers and actually charged twice, and that costs $5.37. So total electricity cost is $174.89 plus the fuel cost, totaling $513.58 for the full year of ownership. Now I'm going to move on to comparing the NX450h Plus ownership to if I actually bought an NX250, 350, or 350h, and also a mixture of either I use premium fuel or regular fuel. So I've actually filled my NX with premium. Yes, some people will say waste of money. Reality is I don't really care if it's waste of money or not, but really let's have a look, right? Because I think there's a justification here why I'm actually going to use premium versus regular. So here is the NX450 H, really the cost of my vehicle. So the cost of driving the 10,000 kilometers I've driven is $513.58. Okay, that includes the electricity. So in here, it actually has the electricity costs on top. And the cost per kilometer driven is about 5 cents Canadian per kilometer driven, or converting it to about 2 cents per mile driven in the US. Okay, and then we look at here regular. So meaning I've used regular gas. So I took 31 cents off the premium of premium gasoline and used it as the regular gasoline price. And here, with that cost, you would see here with the electricity, which it doesn't change, and the savings of using regular, it's $459.33. So the whole year, comparing how much I'm driving, using regular and premium, I'm saving $54.25. So essentially, it's one fill up. So it actually has saved one fill up of gasoline. When you think of it, I fill up once every 3 months. The gasoline in Shell, where I put gasoline in, regular actually has ethanol. But premium, they say there's no ethanol, but possibly there is, but it's a lower percentage blend. So when you look at it, $54 for a whole year is really negligible. It's not that much more. And you're saving 1 cent per kilometer driven. And in the US, it's so small that it still rounds up to 2 cents. So personally, I'm still going to go with premium. I think that's enough said. I don't think I'm going to argue that you shouldn't use regular. I think regular is still fine. But personally, for my driving habits, premium makes a little bit more sense. And it's really only $54 for a year. It's not $54 for a month. It's only really for the year. So I don't think it makes that big of a difference. Enough said. So now let's move down to the NX250. So based on the 8.4 liters per 100 combined, using the same formula, the amount of gas filled up, it would cost $1,307.59, which means I'm saving $794.02 of gasoline. Yes, the 250 is much cheaper than the 450h Plus. I totally understand. This is just to compare if I had the 250, how much I would be paying on gasoline. Not saying that total cost of ownership, because it will cost more. There's no way that I can save that on gasoline. But again, it's the experience as well, right? So now we move on to the NX350. Again, same formula using 9.5 liters per 100 kilometers combined. It would cost me $1,784.34. Then that's a difference of $1,270.76 of gasoline. You can see there's a big difference here. But again, if I do a fully loaded NX350 versus what I paid for the NX450H Plus, there's still a big gap there. And probably 10 years, or I may be able to save the difference. So really, there's not that big of a difference. But again, it's different in experience. Being able to drive an EV, being able to plug it in, being able to have near silence driving, even more power. The 450H Plus has a better horsepower. It has that instant torque. So that is the difference. Now moving on to, I think a lot of people will consider the 350H, which is very good on fuel, right? So now let's move down. If I've drove the NX350H with the same kilometers using a 6 liters per 100 kilometer rating, it would be $1,126.95 of fuel. And that means it's a saving of $613.38. So that's the difference between the 450H Plus and the 350H. But this one, again, is using premium fuel. So I'm comparing the premium fuel costs. And then let's go back to the regular. So now using regular gasoline, it would cost $934 of gasoline. And that's a saving of $420.42. So when you look at that, there is a not as big of a difference, and you do get a hybrid, and that's where you see the benefit of hybrid, because when you look at the 350 versus the 350h, that's almost double savings, right? You can see there's a big gap in between the 350h and the 350 in gasoline consumption. Regular wise, if you look at here, $613 and $420, or even looking at the actuals, you're talking about $200 difference in gasoline usage. So when you drive the NX350h, it may make sense to actually use regular, because a whole year it's about $200 difference. But then it's all up to the owner. What do they want to use? Again, premium is recommended, not required. So there we have it. The comparison of if I drove a different NX, what would it cost? And gives you some insights on which one to get. And I think the 350h is actually quite good. There's quite enough savings between the 350 and 350h, and it's probably a good buy. I've also took advantage of free charging. ChargePoint actually has many places in around the GTA where there is free charging at malls and at certain locations. So here you can see I went to Niagara-on-the-Lake in June 5th for free charging, adding 29 kilometers, all the way to Newmarket at 41 kilometers, and just vice versa, just being able to take advantage of free parking. And also on top of that, I've also went to an extremely expensive parking location, downtown Toronto in Brookfield Place, paying like an arm and a leg to park, but also took advantage of the charging that they have in the parking lot. They actually have a lot of parking spots for EVs and PHEVs where they can plug in and charge. And you can see here we have a lot of Teslas, and my car is parked there just to get a charge while I'm wandering downtown Toronto. So I think that's critical when you actually have EVs or a PHEV. Try to find places to get a charge. Some people may say, I'm taking the spot of EVs who actually need the charge because I can go on gasoline, right? But again, I want to charge. I want to be zero emissions when I go home. So if I didn't charge in downtown Toronto, I would have to use gas to get home. But now, because I've charged in the parking lot, I was able to go down with EV and go home with EV driving. So there's advantages of this, but I just considered the $2 of electricity as part of my parking costs at Brookfield Place. This is another topic on fuel usage. So everybody knows that gasometer, or people call it distance to empty. It actually happens on the EV range and also the gasoline range, the HV range. I took a scenario here on my last fill up. Before I actually filled up the fuel tank, it actually said that I had 107 kilometers remaining. So that would mean whatever gasoline I have left in the tank, I would be able to drive 107 kilometers. After I filled up, it came back and said I have 801 kilometers. So I took the difference between the two. So meaning whatever I filled up, I gained 694 kilometers after that fill up. I filled up 36.817 liters of fuel. Doing the math, it means that it's using 5.31 liters per 100 kilometers to calculate that. But in reality, the car is rated at 6.6 liters per 100 kilometers combined. So if we take 36.817 liters filled, using the 6.6, I'm supposed to only gain 557.83 kilometers. And then with the 107 that was remaining, The guessometer, or the distance to empty based on this calculation, should only be 664.83 kilometers. It means that the guessometer is actually 136.17 kilometers more optimistic. I still haven't really ironed out this HV distance to empty because I feel sometimes that I drove, let's say, 40 kilometers on the highway in HV mode, but the guessometer actually drops more than the 40. I do feel that the car, even after 1 year of driving, probably I'm not driving it a lot, it hasn't learned the actual driving behaviors for it to actually give me a good distance to empty number. And that one is a little bit hard to guess because especially if you're going on a road trips, it says that you have that many, but you may have to exit that highway much earlier to get a new fill up. When it actually goes down to very low numbers, you would see, oh, it's time to fill up. But I really haven't calculated when it actually said I have 801 kilometers that I've actually driven 801 kilometers on hybrid mode. That's another task that I'm going to be looking at in future updates to see if I can actually get this number and iron out how does this actually work out. Because I feel that the hybrid distance to empty guessometer is very optimistic. So talking about charge mode, I've got a lot of people asking me about, oh, is there any benefits using charge mode? So what I did was I actually went downtown one day and was not able to find a place to charge and didn't have the time to charge. So then I actually had a day where I used up all my EV range and was not able to find a charger, had a day out, had dinner with friends, and then had to go and do some other stuff. Then that day I said, okay, maybe I should just use charge mode and see how much do I gain? How much do I lose in the guessometer? And this is the scenario that I have. So I started off with, on trip B, 88.6 kilometers. I had a distance to empty in hybrid mode, HV, is 212 kilometers. And I have one EV range distance to empty when I started the charge mode. Then, going through that process, I drove 6.8 kilometers, and then the HV distance to empty actually lost 12 kilometers. I gained 3 EV kilometers. So, meaning the gap between the gain and the loss is about 2.2 kilometers. Going through that process, so I during that process I took few photos while it's using charge mode, and it was quite noisy. It actually revs the engines more, especially if you're on local roads. If you're on the highway, it's actually better. You don't feel the engine roaring as much. But on local roads, especially when you're on the full stop and then you accelerate, it roars. And I think that's one reason why you probably won't want to use that when you're driving on local roads. If you're on the highway, it may make sense. But this mostly has actually been done driving on highway. So meaning whatever extra gas consumption it actually used to restore EV range. So overall, when you look at it from trip B from 88.6 kilometers to the destination 134.6 kilometers, I've driven 46 kilometers. During that time, my distance to empty went to 27 kilometers. So meaning I've gained 26 kilometers of EV range. So with the kilometers driven plus the gained EV range, it totals to 72 kilometers. But my distance to empty from 212 kilometers, it dropped to 116 kilometers. So in total, I've actually lost 96 kilometers on the distance to empty. So comparing 72 to 96, I've actually lost 24 kilometers. With that being said, it really depends because, as I said before, the distance to empty seems to be very optimistic. But looking at what we have here, is it 24 kilometers optimistic? It's hard to say. What I would think is I would not use this charge mode unless it's really necessary. This was an experiment and it did see that I've lost 24 kilometers. One thing that I would also try to do in future videos is to see driving the same distance, one using charge mode and one using just normal driving, to see is there a big difference, because it's not exactly the same, because different weather, different speeds, and different driving habits could actually change this. But overall, here we have it, gaining the kilometers driven with the EV range gained 72 kilometers, but the guessometer has dropped 96 kilometers in a result of losing 24 kilometers out of nowhere. But again, that 24 kilometers could be related to the over optimistic guessometer. So winter driving on the NX is quite interesting. It can actually become a lot of Christmas tree lights on the dash, where it will say something like system stop, the front radar sensor is blocked, it needs to be cleaned because it's actually been covered. Even though I was not using any radar cruise control or anything, but it still shows these messages telling you that the system is actually not operating as it should, even though it's not engaged. And you will actually get messages saying that you would actually have the sensors are being blocked, and it actually would tell you exactly which sensor is actually being blocked. So it says like parking assist is unavailable, sensors blocked, and it will show two sensors that are blocked. And you can see here in this image there are 4 sensors in the front and 4 in the back. And then you can start seeing that there's a lot of lights, a lot of caution orange lights telling you things are not working as it should be. And then it also would say things are being stopped, and you can see the result of it is there's a lot of slushy ice or slushy snow on the Lexus emblem and also on the sensors. And this is something that probably people who are in warm weather, warm climate, you'll never experience this. If you're in the colder climates where you have winter and snow and slush, you would experience these messages. You can see here my front camera and the Lexus logo is totally full of snow and slushy ice, and had to be scraped off in order for these messages to not show. So you have to expect that these will happen, especially in wintertime, and it's critical that this is not a system failure. This is just typically what happens. One thing that I would say is unfortunate is that in the new RZ or RZ or even the RX, they actually have now heated Lexus emblems. So meaning when you actually turn on the defroster, it will actually heat up and melt the areas where we have snow. That way, your radar cruise control will not get that message saying that it is blocked by something. So we all know that EV cars will lose at least 15%, and at worst 30% of range. During the few months of winter months, I would say that the app actually seems to be very optimistic. And I think there's a few things I want to make note here. One is I've actually got range from like 70 kilometers, like 69.9 kilometers to 64.9 kilometers, and down to a point where it's roughly 60 kilometers. And then when you look at that, you would think that, okay, the car's rated at 61 kilometers, so it seems fine, right? However, heating up that cabin actually takes a toll on the EV range. It actually could deduct up to like 8-9 kilometers of EV range. And when you think of it, if you drive short distances with the heat on, and by the time you get to your destination, you power it off, the car cools down, and then you go back and you go home, and then you drive again. What will happen is it will then take another few kilometers of EV range just to warm up the car. So if you actually go and drive a full 60 whatever kilometers that they say that you have in one go, it actually is better. if you actually go in multiple trips and the car needs to warm up the cabin, you will never even reach the 60 kilometers. So from what I've seen is the lowest I've actually ever got is about 46 kilometers of EV range in the winter. There are times in similar weather, like -5 degrees, I've also got 58 kilometers. So you can see there's a big gap there. And all of that is really related to how many times you actually stop, the car cools down, and it needs to warm up the whole cabin again. So there is a lot of reasons why this will happen. And there are even times where it's 1 degree out there, still cold, but still just getting 52 kilometers of range. So it is very critical to plan your trip, and really, you probably would use more gas in the winter months just because of warming up that cabin, especially when it even needs the heat pump. Heat pump is more efficient, and I think that is why in the new RZ or RZ, they actually have these new radiant heaters. Because one thing I've actually tried myself is I turn off the heat. The heated seats and the heated steering wheel seems to be fine. However, when you drive like 5-10 minutes, you will start feeling your legs getting a little bit too cold. And that's when you say, okay, let's turn it back on. But if with those radiant heaters, I think it is possible that you don't need to turn on the heat pump to actually generate heat into the cabin. And maybe this could be something that they can add in to the NX. However, having the radiant heater means that you lose a glove compartment. What do you think about that? Owning this vehicle for 1 year. Being in the Greater Toronto area, we may be lucky to see some of other NX450h Pluses. I've seen probably about 5 NX450h Pluses on the road, sometimes in parking lots, sometimes in different places. And it still seems very rare. Not saying that there's only 5 in the Greater Toronto area, definitely there's more, but I have not been seeing like the older generation NXs where it's everywhere. In one parking lot, you'll probably find 4 or 5 of them. And if you look at the second generation, I would say that I've seen more NX350s on the road than any of the other models. NX250s, I've actually rarely see. And the NX350h, which is quite surprising that there's a long wait list on that as well. However, I've actually seen, I think, more than 10 of those vehicles when I'm driving around in the local area. So, with that being said, I think there is still a lot of NXs out in the marketplace. The hybrids. The plug-in hybrids are a little bit harder to find, but surprisingly, I've actually bumped into quite a few as well. So with that being said, this is no market research, but just over the year, how many of these 450h Pluses I've seen, and in reality, it's one handful. Another thing that happened is, if you followed my channel, you would have seen the video on my NX dying. Yes, the 12-volt battery decided to go after a day of minus 21 degrees. And it decided to not want to start. And I'm not going to talk too much about that here, but as an update, I think I should still talk about it. If you haven't watched that video, you can actually go and watch that video. I'll add a card to this so you can watch that video. And one thing is, it's because I drive extremely short distances, and I think over time it drains that 12-volt battery. I have added a trickle charger to my vehicle right now, and I actually charge it every like 2 or 3 weeks, and it seems to be fine. One thing I would say, if you do drive short distances, it's no matter which NX you have, you probably should maintain that 12-volt battery. Hey Lexus.
What would you like to do?
What day is it today?
Today is Thursday, March 23rd.
So today being Thursday, March 23rd, we can see that what is this over-the-air update? So let me go back to the gear and let's have a look at the software update. So I've been seeing this no updates available for almost a whole year. The only time I've actually got an update was looking at this history. March 31st, 2022. And today, March 23rd, 2023. No other updates have occurred with the Lexus interface. I don't know if other owners, I know people in Europe have actually been getting continuous updates. But here in Canada, probably North America, we're not getting really that many updates. The only update that I got was the head unit 1025, the VD 1010, and that is it. So, I don't know, advertising as over the updates, but really not getting any updates, seems to be a bit lame. So, I was just not pleased with this. We all know that there are some bugs in the system. We've been working around them, and reality is, I haven't really got a lot of bugs, but there are some pain points. And I know some others are having connectivity issues and all that, but it doesn't make sense that over-the-air updates, but almost 1 year. It's really just 1 week shy of my last update. And that is 1 year anniversary of no updates to the Lexus interface. Lexus, you can definitely do better here. Since I took ownership of the NX, there has been 23 app updates on the mobile app. So you can see this list. There's a lot of updates and it actually has continuous updates. And one key thing is on March 30th, 2022, they released a new iOS app and the new look and feel and was added to the iOS, and shortly after the Android version was released as well. Unlike the Lexus interface infotainment screen, I think the Lexus Mobile App team are doing more and they're keen in fixing issues and releasing updates. But I still like the older version of the mobile app where when you're charging it actually tells you an estimated range of while you're charging. So you know that, oh, I have enough, maybe I can actually now pull it. But then when you look at the new one, it only shows a percentage. And now you got to do some guessing. And it's almost like by experience. I know, okay, I can unplug it, I have enough range. And sometimes I feel that the mobile app fixes are it's one step forward and then two steps back. Recent issue that I've seen is I have range left in miles. It shows that I have 51 or whatever miles in range. But then when I go into the details, it tells me I have 51 kilometers. Isn't that odd? And sometimes it actually combines the HV and EV range and shows me this is how much range to empty I have. But then it shows me sometimes EV range only. It's a bit odd. But at least they are doing something about it, and they're continuously providing fixes to their customers. Not saying that they're the best mobile app out there, but at least I'm seeing there's progress. I can't end this video without giving my thoughts of my 1 year ownership of the 2022 Lexus NX450h Plus. I spent a lot of time in this video talking about the cost of ownership, the issues with the car, and with the software. And I got to say that this is one of the Lexus vehicles that I had to go back to the dealership more times than the previous vehicles I've owned. There was one time for a safety recall update, one time for the 12-volt battery dying because of the engine light. Typically, it would only just be the first inspection, and the next one will just be a regular maintenance or a winter or all-season tire swap. It just feels they're maybe first model year, but I actually owned a 2015 Lexus NX as well. The first model year for the brand new NX at that time, and there wasn't that many issues. I'm glad that I don't have some of the other issues that I've seen from other NX owners where they're having issues with the door lock not being able to open the door because it's frozen inside. So I'm glad that I haven't really experienced anything that's big other than that 12-volt battery issue, which I think I have to be blamed on as well because of the distance I drive. Other than having to go back to the dealership more, I would say there are a few things that probably would have made me feel that owning this vehicle would not be great. One probably would be the wireless charger. It seems to be flaky. I know that there's supposed to be a fix, but there doesn't seem to be a need or a recall that Lexus thinks that this should be actually replaced with all the people who had the 2022 and some of the 2023 models. But I'm not sure if that actually is still a good fix or there should be another change, because I'm hoping that that would be one of the recalls that they will make, is to replace those wireless chargers. Another thing is the Lexus interface. Great to see that they have improved the infotainment system when you compare that to the old Lexus Inform. However, not having any updates for the year just makes me feel bad. As a software developer at heart, I always feel that, yes, you should actually be making bug fixes, but really, is the March 2022 version the best version that we can make, and there's still no updates? That bothers me a little bit. But other than that, I would say the overall experience of this vehicle, I'm still very pleased. Every time I start the vehicle, I enjoy not having to think about going to the gas station that often, and the quiet EV ride. And overall, the experience is much better than my previous two Lexus NXs. With that being said, I would say that I would not regret having to pay more and to get this NX. And as all would say, I am damn lucky. I am very lucky to be able to get a cadmium orange F-Sport in Canada and not have to wait the 12 to 24 months for an NX450h Plus. And for the folks who are still waiting for their NX, hopefully things will get better. I do believe things will get better, and your NX will be coming shortly. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please comment, like, and share this video. If you'd like to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to my channel and press that alert button to get notified when new videos are posted. If you'd like to support the channel, you can definitely provide a super thanks. I'll see you guys again next time in the next video.